Hello there, Commonwealth from. Until the big June Nintendo Direct, the biggest Zelda news so far in 2024 is a book. Meanwhile, on the game front, complete silence. Nothing Zelda. No new games, but that is obvious, so our hope is in remakes and remasters, yes even upscaled ports. The main candidates being the two games that besides Xenoblade Chronicles X, still make it worth owning a Wii U. The Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. But the value of these on the Switch should not be as individual releases as was the strategy on the Wii U. Rather, they should be combined, or in Tears of the Kingdom terms, fused. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notification bell. It all comes down to turning something old into new, or if you prefer, making the Gamecube Zeldas the next great thing on the Switch from the Gamecube library, after Mario, Metroid and Paper Mario. But here, not just being the third version of these games, or in the case of Twilight Princess, fourth. Rather, being the first true Zelda bundle since Four Swords with their Link to the Past Game Boy Advance remaster. And would you look and behold, we're getting a real June Nintendo first-party direct, despite Nintendo already confirming the reveal of the successor system by the end of March 2025. Which makes sense, as we still have a holiday season to sell games in, and with over 140 million Nintendo Switches out there, what can sell quick and well? Usually, it would be Pokemon, but none of that until 2025. So, Mario Party and The Legend of Zelda. Now, before we go into talking about these two games, I have to highlight that they, in the final full year of the Switch, do depend on whether a final remake of Ocarina of Time is currently in development for the successor system. Why? Since otherwise, these two games are prime candidates for the launch of the next system, Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess in 4K. It just sounds more next-gen than Zelda HD bundle. In other words, the only way we can get these two games on the Switch is if Ocarina of Time 4K equals fact. Or a little twist, but we'll get back to that one. Otherwise, these GameCube and Wii U 3D Zelda games are the perfect fit for the Nintendo Switch. And why these two games are the perfect June reveal and last Switch fall/holiday release. First and foremost, unless A Link Between Worlds gets the Miitopia/Luigi's Mansion 2 HD from 3D to Switch treatment, then this combo is the only easy Zelda release that we can get in 2024. No brand new Zelda, it is too soon after Tears of the Kingdom and too close to the launch of the next system. Let's face it, the next Zelda game, whether 3D or more likely first 2D top-down, will not be a Switch title. The Switch successor simply requires. Secondly, a Wind Waker plus Twilight Princess bundle will be the Wii U to Switch treatment finally applied to The Legend of Zelda. That's right, after Mario Kart, Mario, Donkey Kong, even the original Hyrule Warriors had their turn. What did all of these share in common? Extra content, all DLC included, or an entirely new adventure? Which one do I think it will be for these two? None, since the plus is what I think we could get. Just like 3D World plus Bowser's Fury in 2021. Bowser's Fury, in that case, being an entirely new adventure. But in the case of the Wind Waker plus Twilight Princess HD, the selling point might be that you get both of the games for, say, $80. The biggest Wii U to Switch port to date. Two full 3D Zelda games for slightly above the price of Tears of the Kingdom. Now that is what you call a late generational holiday deal. The last big final release of these upgraded ports that effectively shuts down the Wii U for good, unless you're a massive Xenoblade Chronicles X fan. But could we still get some additional content? Maybe one of the missing Wind Waker dungeons or Gamecube Island, but probably not much more. Twilight Princess, on the other hand, is the 3D Zelda with the most dungeons, so it is fine as it is. Maybe the intro can be more streamlined like what we saw with Skyward Sword HD, and a slight camera improvement to make it 100% dual analog and on the same level camera-wise as the Wind Waker. Either way, they are the safest bet for the final year of the Switch if the successor, as indicated by leaks and rumors, is backwards compatible. Add to that the Ocarina of Time 4K remake rumors turning into reality. Since in this scenario there's no need for a Wind Waker 4K and Twilight Princess 4K apart from being upscaled. Ocarina would, much like in the case of the launch of the 3DS, be its system launch style. But after Ocarina, people will want to know what happened, and look and behold, the Hyrule follow-up titles are right there available for purchase. Backwards compatibility allows you to know what happened in the child and adult timeline branches, to both Hyrule, the Triforce, and Ganon. For real, this triple Zelda dip could be one of Nintendo's greatest strikes of genius in a long time. since in 2024 we could get the release of Wind Waker HD plus Twilight Princess HD on Nintendo Switch. Then in 2025 or 2026, the release of the rumored and according to some leaked Ocarina of Time 4K remake as part of the first 2 launch years of the new system. A game that ends and is continued in Hyrule in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Both playable thanks to backwards compatibility on the new system. This triforce of games literally prints money, but why do the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess combined fit these roles so well? Since the HD versions of these 2 games did not exactly break records on the Wii U. The Wind Waker HD, for instance, over 3 years sold 2.67 million copies. Twilight Princess HD barely managed to get over 1 million in its 1 year before the launch of the Switch. These games could experience new life thanks to the popularity of 3D Zelda following Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and naturally, the popularity of the Switch. And still more by first launching on the Switch in 2024, and then its backwards compatible titles marketed together with Ocarina of Time 4K on the successor. And by putting those remakes/remasters to rest once and for all, Nintendo still has one more 4K remake of 3D Zelda possible for the next system, the Hero of Time sequel, Majora's Mask, which again is the title before Twilight Princess. Another chance to sell a potential dual bundle in the later stages of the success. As you can see, the value of such a dual release for the Switch in 2024 is immense, but we have barely even talked about the games themselves. Both have their own strong points, and that is what makes them perfect for such a bundle, since these 2 are probably the most widely different Zelda games in the series. One is a sailing adventure from island to island, while the other is an on-foot and horseback grounded epic. Which begs the question, which one to play first? And right here we find the position of said bundle. It is no longer just Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in HD again, but something fresh which has never been presented and sold this way before. 2 games in one set that once again are relevant for lore and theory videos, etc. Not so different from Super Mario 3D All-Stars, only in this case with far better looking games. Since there's no N64 original to drag down the experience with its low poly and awkward camera controls. Just 2 dual analog camera controlled grand quests with so many highlights within and outside of its dungeons. Unless this bundle is a Kingdom of Hyrule Zelda 3D All-Stars with the 3 games in 3D that are set in said kingdom prior to Breath and Tears. Ocarina of Time 3D, upscaled from 3DS, Wind Waker HD ported from the Wii U, and the same for Twilight Princess HD. Now that would be something, especially since none of the games celebrate an anniversary this year. In fact, it could even be the most fitting solution. At the same time, we would rather have an Ocarina of Time 4K remake later down the line. Anyhow, both of these games have fights that are in our top 10 Zelda boss fights and dungeons of all time, and some of the best final boss climaxes. Both HD versions though are trapped on a system that isn't worthy of the caliber, as the gamepad never realized the handheld aspect. Oh, and the system didn't sell them. Now however, these classics could finally be playable anywhere and anytime. And trust me, these 2 games fit perfectly to the undocked aspect of the Switch. They will be playable in the highest of resolutions and most likely even be bumped up to 60 frames per second, just as was the case with Skyward Sword HD. How? Since the map and draw distances will not be an issue with maps that are much smaller than Breath of the Wild and definitely Tears of the Kingdom. Either way, if Ocarina of Time 4K remake is under development for a Switch successor, then there's never been a better moment for a dual game Zelda Gamecube bundle than right now. With hero mode in both and amiibo integration, as the Wind Waker might want to replace Miiverse with this. A price somewhere between $80 and $100 would also be acceptable, especially if playable on the next system for backwards compatibility. At the same time, both this dual game bundle case and a Zelda 3D All-Star Hyrule Edition scenario require one thing: reveal of the last big Zelda Switch release in the June 2024 first-party Nintendo Direct, one of the last big announcements for the system, with a release hopefully around when Link's Awakening came out. So September, though November is also an option with no Pokemon game this year. Either way, I want to see your thoughts about the last chance to bring Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to the Nintendo Switch. Will it happen by this holiday season, or is it being saved for a later point in 4K? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notification bell to not miss any of our upcoming Zelda videos. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/CommonRealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our producers Zach Johnson and JC Funk, and heroes Holly Wolf, Cheryl, and Garrett Hoy. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.